Good evening and welcome to the French Grand Prix with Invictus Racing League in partnership with RacingLineMP.com, the motorsport marketplace. Go there for all memorabilia and anything motorsport related. And yes, welcome and good evening to the French Grand Prix at Le Castellet, the Paul Ricard circuit. And of course, I am joined once again in the commentary box by Tom.
Merci beaucoup to everybody out there, and hello Gareth, nice to be alongside you once again as we venture to France for the first time in Invictus Racing Leagues.
Absolutely, and of course we will start tonight's stream with a 2-minute silence in remembrance. It's our final race before Remembrance Sunday coming up this week, so we will start the stream with a 2-minute silence, as the guys, they won't exit the pit lanes for the first 2 minutes, and of course we will remember those who serve and have served with our brave armed forces.
Yes, and also it's part of the minute silence is also towards our member Never Miss, who has had a bereavement, and also as Invictus we are a community, we are one family, so we'd like to take this time to remember the war veterans from years gone by, and also to pay our tribute to Never Miss and his family. And we hope you may be suffering at present, but we hope you get through that, and we're all here for you and we all support you, so thank you very much.
Absolutely, and of course as soon as we go to the session we will commence the 2-minute silence. And welcome back everyone to the French Grand Prix. Yes, we are here at Circuit Paul Ricard. 15 corners, 6 left, 9 right, over a distance of 5.82 kilometres. That's 3.63 miles. Circuit used as a test circuit for tyres with the luminous colours you'll see across the track. Of course, you've got the blue zone, the red zone and the grey zone, differentiating levels of scratch on top of the surface for the tyre tests. And you'll see the abrasive material made out of that tungsten and asphalt that will really wear out those tyres if the guys find themselves running slightly wide going later in the lap, as we see some of the guys starting to peel off out of the pit lane into the race circuit. Looks like we're going to have a dry qualifying session for now. The focus of the lap, of course, is the famous Mistral Straight, which was previously, up until the original circuit was running, was a 1.1 mile long straight, and unfortunately now has that nasty chicane right slap bang in the middle of it at the end of the DRS zone. But we will look to see the guys really launching themselves down either end of that straight into the mid-sector of the race. 27 laps, I believe it is, over full throttle, around 58 to 60% of the lap with 46 gear changes per lap. That's around 1,242 over the race. And this F1 circuit, I'm sure Tom's got his opinion on it, but one of 167 potential layouts due to the different corners that could be taken throughout the lap. So 167 ways to get lost in France. And of course the guys will be hitting a top speed of around 325 kilometers an hour. That's 201.9 miles an hour. So Tom, what are your thoughts on the Paul Ricard circuit that we've just joined this season?
It's rubbish. The track layout with the run-ups is just hypnotising. No, it's a funny track. It takes you a while to get used to, especially the final sector. So I imagine a lot of the drivers now would have had plenty of practice on the circuit to get used to it. But unfortunately, to my dismay, there's a lot of run-off areas. When I say run-off areas, there's a lot of concrete. That's all it is. It's mainly like the blue lines, the red lines. It's not the kind of layout I like. It's the kind of modern day Formula 1 circuit we've come to see, as I think someone's gone off in Sector 3. I believe it's McLaren of Humberstone losing the back end there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting coming into this weekend, Gareth. We're going to have a returning Scopefielder looking to get his championship challenger back online. You've also got Speed Queen. It's a shame we've missed Scott. Scott's not racing this weekend. You've also got Humberstone in the McLaren. Last week, Mama Fisher ran very well in the Renault. Unfortunately, her presence is not here, as well. Sargent, who it's getting up to a month since the last time we saw him, which is unfortunate because we're going to be a third of the way into the season post French Grand Prix. When I heard the French Grand Prix was coming back, Gareth, and I'm sure you're the same. You'd have been hoping for the Mandy Cars track to be the circuit of choice.
Absolutely, Manicourt was one of definitely a very interesting circuit. Probably a lot more. You'll see much tighter racing than you will see around here. It's very easy to get split up around this circuit due to the nature of such long straights. It's quite hard to follow. You find yourself getting caught in that dirty air of the car in front. So it's definitely going to be tricky for the guys tonight to make sure they've got that car just perfectly set up for the race. And yeah, as we were talking about, last race was won by Jos, who were on board with in the Toro Rosso. He took the win after a penalty, demoted Mama Fisher down to second place. It was Delange that picked up third. He started the season very strongly. He's been quietly consistent. He's yet to pick up a race victory, as has not Humberstone, as Jos pits after one lap, an installation lap on the soft tyres, and it's Joel that set the initial time of 1:31.2. But going back to the results, yes, Speed Queen, who came in fourth. So Speed Queen, that's actually her best result of the season. So she's definitely slowly starting to get back into the rhythm after having that season out last week. And we've seen guys starting to store, especially some of the guys that we were expecting to go a little bit quicker this season, struggling, and definitely some of the guys that we were possibly expecting to be a little bit slower right at the top, like Humberstone, like Scopefielder. So with Humberstone leading the title after his fifth place last week, but yet to pick up that win, he sits at the top of the standings with Scopefielder and Scott in second place on 20. After Scott didn't finish last week, and Scopefielder finished out of the points, and Delange sits back in third place on 19 points.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we didn't get Sargent back again racing this weekend. You know, him and Speed Queen were hoping that the mega powers would have reformed. We'll have to see where we go from here. The one issue that I think a lot of drivers are going to have, and it also came up in the previous stewards briefing, is the pit entry. It's quite an awkward pit entry, which fires you in just off the straight. So I'm expecting the drivers to be very cautious coming to the final sector of the track, as well as being shot out, if you will. I'm just trying to look for anybody who's set a lap time as of yet. I'm having a bit of issues there, yeah. So you got Joel on the Ultrasofts, 1.4 ahead of Chill Nealand in the McLaren on the Ultrasofts as well. You also got a very solid run so far from Delange on the softs, with Renner in the Renault on the Supersofts. Another yellow flag, and quite a lot of yellow flags at the moment, as it's SJD in the Red Bull who's gone off. Just looking for grip on the runoff there.
Yeah, so easy to just run offline ever so slightly here, and you'll see yourself using that abrasive circuit as Scopefielder goes across the line with 1:34.5. So installation lap there, not the most competitive lap from Scopefielder, who will definitely look to be setting a much faster time, only on the softs of course, so on the hardest compound of tyres that the guys have brought to the French Grand Prix this week. So possibly just a sighter, just to get his eye in on the circuit, just see what the conditions are like out on track at the moment, get those tyres up to speed, and possibly look at another run after a second lap to essentially reset yourself.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Joss make his way through the pack this week, like he did last week when he had a fantastic start. He went through the grid like a hitman. He just came all the way through and ended up having a good finish to the race alongside Mama Fisher, which was a fantastic finale you all remember. But I'm looking for Joel and Humberstone to come back. They both had difficult races last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Humberstone finishing fifth, so he started the season well with 2 second places and came in fifth last week. So keeping himself in the top 6 is what you want to do if you want to challenge for a title going on. And I will get to your comments in a minute, guys, as we go through the qualifying session. But I've just had the weather report in from the guys, and it's a very interesting one. And we're starting off the session with overcast weather, but we will be heading to heavy rain come the middle to late part of the race. So it's definitely going to be on the guys' minds today to set up that car for a wet session. Because it looks like we will have at least 50% of the race distance will be in the wet conditions. So particularly tricky decisions for these guys here when it comes to putting the right setup on the car. Do they go for a tighter wet setup or a slightly looser dry setup? What would you do if you were sitting in the car, Tom, sitting in that garage and talking to your race engineer about how to set up the car for the race?
I'd probably be looking for optimum downforce. I'd be definitely looking towards the mid part of the race, end of the race, where it's going to be a case of Survivor Series. You know, you want to be staying out. You want to be one of the survivors on the track. When the conditions do get the heaviest, especially with regards to rain, you're going to be slipping and sliding everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go to Paul Ricard back on the F1 calendar, the first time since 1990. Of course, it moved to Magny-Cours from from the mid-90s up until 2008 when it left the F1 calendar. Named after the famous industrialist Paul Ricard and opened in 1970, the circuit held races from the 1970 season to the 1990 season, but sold in 1999 after Ricard's death to a company owned by Bernie Eccleston, who turned it into a test track, which actually was the first use of his very controversial sprinkler system, which he was potentially thinking about bringing into Formula 1 to artificially wet the track to make them a little bit more interesting. So the Paul Ricard circuit was equipped with the sprinkler system in test for bringing it into the calendar, which luckily I think for all fans of F1 wasn't introduced.
That's a very good point there, Gareth. I completely forgot about that. Knowing you probably had that off the top of your head. Some people might say you had notes, but I'm not one of those people. As we continue on track, as we've got F1 Malk 3.3 seconds behind at the moment. He'll be looking to lay the smack on this track at the moment because he's been struggling during the race. It's been mainly his qualifying where he's been especially looking strongest.
Yeah, absolutely. Malk, he's definitely been feeling rock bottom at the start of the season. Just hasn't managed to really link up his qualifying times into his race pace, and he's been falling back quite often. So he's definitely going to be looking at pushing himself further up the grid, and currently sitting in 9th place at the moment with 1:34.6 on the soft compounded tyres. So he's going to be looking at possibly going out and setting a time on the super softs, getting himself a little bit further up that grid.
Yeah, absolutely. He's looking very, very open at the moment. A mix of super softs and ultra softs. I can imagine they've got a little bit of heat in the super softs to get them going as well as the ultra softs at present.
Absolutely. And Joel's sitting at the top at the moment with just checking over the time, then you can see just how much quicker he's gone. He's a 1:31.2. I hadn't paid attention to the time. I saw he came across and he's currently sitting provisionally top, but it's over a second and a half ahead of Chilton Island in second, who's on the ultra soft tyres as well. So Joel really hooked up tonight, and it's going to be real no mercy for the rest of the grid if he's going to go into the race anything like how he started this qualifying session.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised we're not seeing as many people come out and do a fast lap, which is making the qualifying session not as entertaining. I mean, at the moment, you've got Joel on top of the ladder with the pole position briefcase, and he's saying, well, this is mine at the moment. Nobody's coming close enough to me. I'm on the super softs, and nobody's in the ultra softs getting close enough.
No, absolutely, and we did see in the paddock talk before the race started that he was very confident and he was setting some really quick times. So Joel, definitely confident around this whole windy circuit, and as we see Jos here in 7th place currently out at the moment on another set of soft tyres, so possibly as he goes 1.4 seconds slower at the moment, so not going too quickly at the moment, going into the famous Signe corner of turn 10, which arguably one of the most famous corners on the lap. It's an 85-degree right-hander taken flat out, where the drivers will be hitting around 4 to 5 G of lateral force. So you've really got to hold the car in there, because it's going to want to be fighting against you. So it's in the dry, it's challenging. In the wet, I can't even imagine how hard it will be for these guys to keep it in a straight line.
Fortunately, Gareth, we have picked up Philip MCFC. He comes midway through the circuit. It's his first hot lap, so he needs to get this one in. He's gonna. Oh, and he's pulled it off. He's gone wide, so that's a shame. Commentator's curse there. He looks like he was going to try and climb the ladder, and obviously he's been pulled off.
Yeah, absolutely. Just worst time for the camera to pick up the Sauber driver there, as he's just got a little bit of a twitch on coming out of the chicane at the end of or the midpoint of the straight, and unfortunately for him, that looks like that's the ultra soft tyres that he's on. So that with that little mistake, you can see it just burns out that tyre, and it's with 3 minutes and 22 seconds left. It would be tight for him to get back in and back out with enough time to set another competitive lap. But 4 drivers currently without a time. That's Phil, Mike, Tony and Nicky, all currently sitting as Phil does come in. So hopefully he'll have that Sauber team ready to essentially go in for a pit stop and drop some new tyres on him to send it back out. But it's going to be very tight indeed, as we start to see a lot more cars starting to move out and set their final laps of the qualifying session.
I'm quite surprised that Mike's going to be doing the one run. Gareth, looks like he's on the soft tyres at the moment. We've got Nicky's coming out. Nicky's probably going to be the last one to join this battle royale for pole position. Just going out on an out lap now on the super soft. So Tony White's not gone on. Oh, Tony White just started an out lap. No, Tony White's actually on a hot lap. So we'll stay right on board with him. He's the only person who's on a hot lap at present. So it could have any. It could have any affection to the top of the grid, because he's currently in 13th on ultra softs. Oh no, he's pulled out again. A lot of drivers are pulling out, Gareth, when they get past this tight sector.
Yeah, it did look like he cut the corner ever so slightly at turn 6. That may have invalidated his lap, which is really unfortunate for the Ferrari driver Tony, who we've seen him produce some pretty quick times in qualifying so far. Another one that's struggling to really put the power down when it comes to the race, and yeah, as he pulls to the side and lets the faster drivers go through. So Tony possibly looking to just crawl around, try and keep some life in those ultra softs, and then maybe set one more lap on them as time ticks down, with just over 90 seconds left to go. We've got a yellow and 62 that's quickly cleared. Nicky 9095 out on the super soft. So yeah, Tony taking it pretty easily. So it looks like he may try and conserve his tyres and possibly go, as you see, pulls well off the line to allow the Toro Rosso to go past of Scopefielder, I believe that was.
Yeah, Mike coming through the fast sector now. He's still on the soft, so this will be the only hot lap he is going to get at the moment, which is unfortunate. Possibly should have gone out early on the soft to gauge the track grip and see if he needs to go on the super softs or the ultra softs. He's giving himself a bit of a hard number coming into the rumble this late on to set a lap, especially with only 50 seconds to go. So let's see how we can go on this lap.
Absolutely, and SJD has decided he's currently sitting provisionally second. He's not going to go any quicker, so the Red Bull driver pulls in. That's his session done. Currently sitting in second with 1:31.9 as Delange out on a hot lap in the Haas, coming up to the chicane at turn 9. Gets a nice exit, put the power back down, just throw it into the right-hander at turn 10. Hope the car sticks to the black stuff, and it is nicely kept inside the lines for Delange, just being followed by the by the Force India of Nikki 9095 slowly behind.
I'm quite surprised a lot of the runners have not really gone with the ultra softs. I mean, the super softs obviously running wide. See Nikki there, the slot in the car in third, Joel in third top. Joel with a 6/10 advantage. He's got all the competition against the ropes at the moment. I can't see anybody else who's got the potential to do a fast lap and usurp him as such. Maybe possibly Tony in the Ferrari. He's on a hot lap. Yes, he is. He's on a hot lap, Gareth. So do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, so just sit on board with Tony, who's out there on the ultra soft. The only thing I can think about with these guys that are trying to go, as Tony comes around turn 15. No, he's bailed out. So Tony bails out. He's decided to start from the back of the grid. Will have choice of tyre, of course. The guys that start outside the top 10 will get to choose what tyre they start on. Will be a slightly fresher tyre, as we're on board here with Speed Queen, currently sitting in 11th on the ultra soft tyre. Speed Queen definitely one of the heavyweights of this league, but hasn't quite hit her potential that we've seen before, and it's definitely going to be a tricky one. She's out in the ultra softs, but the only thing I can think about with the guys that are out in the ultras is that they'll probably have to end up pitting before the rain comes. The tyre around here, the tyres do get slightly worn, especially running wide and in that first lap where you're caught in the dirty air and you're having to possibly follow a car around the track. So it's all about how you can look after. Speed Queen moves up in 7th place with a nice time of 1:33 flat there, just ahead of Scopefielder. So yeah, it'll be very interesting who can look after those tyres in that stint before the rain comes, and equally when the rain comes, who's going to be the brave one to stay out possibly an extra lap, and who's going to be the one that comes in and comes onto the intermediates, or do we go straight to the full extreme wets?
I'm quite surprised at Speed Queen going ultra soft, because even if you're Williams, you still imagine the talent that Speed Queen has to be closer than 1.7 seconds to the super soft lap, which is done by Joel, as you can see. So I'm quite surprised about that. It looks like the super soft has been the tyre of choice. With regards to Tunland and Speed Queen, obviously taking the choice to go ultra soft, you also got Renner there, 2.1, so there's quite a gap, which is unfortunate really going to this track. You think not having much knowledge of the track to the races and the tyres of choice which they all have, you'd have hoped the grid would be a lot tighter than that. So it's going to be definitely an interesting race to see as the strategies and tactics wear on. You'll obviously be looking outside the top 10. If you're outside the top 10 now, you're doing the soft tyre, because you're going to go along. You know at some point it's going to rain, so I'm quite surprised to see the like I said, the ultra soft one. So it was Joel's time was on ultra softs. On my screen before it said super soft. So
yeah, it did look like super soft, but it is ultra soft for Joel, who starts on a pole, which is a great time for Joel, for 1:31.2. Chiln Island lines up 2nd place with SJD 1988 with a great time up in 3rd position. Nikki 9095 takes 4th, then Delange comes in 5th with good qualifying session for Delange. Jos comes in 6th, and that left my screen far too quickly. Did not take note of that, but yeah, Jos comes in 6th place, and I believe it was Scopefielder that came in 7th. So I will go through the qualifying results once the guys are out on their formation lap, getting that sighter in. But guys, if you do have any questions for Tom or I, feel free to drop it in. The Boogster has dropped in the first one. He just wants to know, who do we think is going to win this race? So Tom, I will let you answer that one first. Who do you think is your pick for the race win?
I'm gonna say, mainly based on his pure start to the season, and I want to put a marker down, I'm gonna say Joel. I'm gonna have to fancy Joel in the Force India. And I can just apologise for the banging going off in the background, if you can hear that. I'm near a football pitch and they're doing fireworks over there, so I do apologise for that.
Well, it's fine at all. Of course, happy bonfire night to everyone that's watching. We're glad to have you watching the stream tonight, and hopefully we will have some fireworks of our own on circuit. But just echoing, of course, what you just said, you can't look past Joel, who's definitely had the pace in the qualifying session. We know that he's had it in the time trial sessions. We've seen the times that he's been putting up. So Joel definitely up there with a chance taking the race victory tonight. But looking down through the grid, there are definitely other guys that are well placed to make a move up. We see Speed Queen sitting in around 7th place, but also you can't look past people like Nikki 9905, who's done well in wet sessions before. And it's going to be interesting to see these guys that are new to the no assists, like Yoss, like Humbo Stone, how they adapt to the wet weather running. So this is the first real test for the guys that are new to the no assists, that are in the what they would call tier 2 level. But of course these guys are now well up to speed. They're just our no assist drivers, but how do they adapt to this wet session?
Well, it's going to be the first time we're seeing the drivers in the no assist racing with the no assist racing in the rain. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see. They're not going to have the assistance of the traction, they're not going to have the assistance of the ABS. So you could see some mistakes. And like I said earlier on, it's going to be a case who's going to survive the conditions. You're going to obviously want to have a good foundations in the early part of the race, but you don't want to lose it. Otherwise, it'll be a case of Starship pain. You're going to be in a lot of hurt when the rain does eventually come in, and if you can't control that car, you want to be on the right tyre at the right time. When there's a transitional phase of the race, you want to have been on the tyres long enough, so you're obviously looking for the harder compound. So when it comes to changing, you're only doing the 1-stop or potentially the 2-stop. You don't want to be somebody who could be, like I said earlier on, the ultra softs. Joel, Teal, and Speed Queen in the top 10 on the ultra softs. They probably have to stop twice before the rain comes in, so they could be in a world of hurt, which is a shame for themselves. But no, I'm obviously just assuming, so we'll have to see as the race goes on.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've seen just how competitive the league has been so far. We've had some great races in Bahrain, another one last week in Hungary. Different people up the front each time. It's not like we've got a runaway winner at the moment. No one's really decided to take the belt and run with it and hold it up for everyone to see and say, you know what, I will be the champion of this one. And there's been no one that's really sort of taken the onus. So it's definitely chance for someone today to, especially like the guys like Scopefielder, whilst drivers like Scott aren't racing tonight, to kind of get themselves back in and really give themselves a good shot going heading towards Monza with a slight points advantage in the title.
Yeah, absolutely, Gareth. Yeah, I completely agree. It's just a bit of a shame it's taking quite a while to load at the moment. We're getting quite a lot of filler in at the moment. A lot of mid-card action, but not much else. So we're just hoping that this loading screen can go. We can get down to the main event.
Yeah, just checking in with the guys in the on the radios in the paddock. We are having a slight issue with some guys being moved in and out of the session, so hopefully we will be able to go to the session quite soon. We're just finding out. I believe it's Humbo Stone that's having a slight issue of transferring himself from the garage into the car on the main straight, so hopefully he'll be wheeled out anytime soon. But whilst we're talking, we can go back through and talk about some of the other things that have got going on this week with Invictus Racing League. Of course, tomorrow night is Performance 1 and 2. Some absolutely superb racing last week in the Performance 1 race. And then on Wednesday we have F1, F2 and F3, and if you want to see some competitive whilst fun and enjoyable racing, definitely check out the streams on Wednesday evening for F1, F2 and F3. And of course F3 is where you'll find Tom and myself doing battle equally around this circuit. And of course you've had success in the Performance League recently, Tom, and there's definitely room for both of us to improve in F3 and make a move towards the front. But how have you seen your season going, whether it be for performance or equal performance?
Australia was quite fine in regards to the equal performance. Bahrain, I felt like I got hit with a steel chair at Bahrain. Obviously finished 7th, so it wasn't ideal. And last week was a bit of a slobber knocker. I got knocked out by Stephen or Richard. I get confused with the both of them now. I think it was the McLaren brake tested into the right-left chicane. Something that won't happen again. We'll be a bit more cautious next time. But yeah, I managed to get a point, so I didn't give up. A lesser driver, possibly, or somebody else might have just retired from the race. But no, at the end of the season, championship season, all points will count. I mean, at present, 12 points behind Bren, but it's a long season. Like yourself, Gareth, I think we're both quite close. I think we're third and fourth in the championship at the moment, regardless of us having poor start. And obviously, you've got Paolo and Gazman have been removed. So yeah, let's just see how that goes. Performance, and I'll be using this race tomorrow night as my practice for this track because I haven't really practiced, to be honest. How about yourself? Have you practiced? Oh, a bit spot of rain. It's going to rain early. I just got rain on my screen. So
yes, yeah, I just got a slight splash of rain just flicker up on the screen there, so hopefully won't scare the drivers too much. Of course, or starting all on dry compounded tyres. Yeah, it's definitely already raining as they head down the back straight. You can see it coming down, and it's not exactly a slight spattering of rain at all. It's definitely coming down quite heavy already, so possibly a much shorter stint on these dry tyres, which we thought essentially may not benefit the guys that are starting on the ultra softs, but it may be a case that they can use the slight dry period at the start to use a slight extra advantage on those ultra soft tyres to stretch a little bit of a lead out before it looks like we come in for our inevitable stop for intermediates.
Look at the top 10 though, Gareth. You've got Joel and Nicky both in the Force Indias, so Nicky's going to want to try and get the jump on Joel to start to get the pit stop advantage. I'm telling you, man, as soon as that rain started, you'd be in that car and you'd be absolutely stunned. You felt like you had a leg drop on you, and you'd have been quite annoyed. Oh, they're leaving the session. Why are they leaving the session?
We'll see, of course. Guys leaving the session, so we will look to see if there's something happening. Of course, yeah, we've lost the pole sitter, so looks like we may have to have a session restart there, and hopefully, of course, we'll have the settings. We'll have a custom grid finishing as it start or as we see it now. So Joel will be your pole sitter for the reset. Of course, we will find out what's going on. We'll keep the stream going, guys. We'll just keep rattling on and talking about our own experiences, talking about anything else. But equally, if you're in the comments, feel free to drop some talking points in if you'd like to see us anything. I see a load of you watching tonight, so
should be a wet race start. I'd be quite annoyed if it's not a wet race start because it was raining. That was set up wonderfully then for ourselves because we're starting on the dry tyres. It should be a wet race start. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
It should be a wet race start. I know they're going to send another invite out and all that, but it should be a wet race start.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see Fashgo and Sab both saying, yeah, look, they could definitely see the rain, and Sab saying, looks like it's going to be a good race, as we see on my screen. It's already a race victory for the McLaren. So, of course, hopefully that's not the end of the race already. We will have a session reset, hopefully as soon as possible. We're just getting rechecks on the guys at the top, and I will hopefully get jumped back in as soon as possible. But for now, yes. So when it comes to the season, how do you find yourself essentially putting in the laps to use the Performance League as your benchmark for the equal performance, or do you find yourself kind of separating both and using the two equally
I use my Performance League as a practice run for the Equal League on the Wednesday. It's a chance for me to look at the race strategies, get used to the tracks, if you will. I mean, I did a couple of laps on this last Wednesday. It was awful. I think I was like 132, 131, but it's like the first and middle part of the track I got used to fairly easily. It was just the final part of the track I just couldn't get used to it at all because you're going quite fast. There's a lot of fast corners, and then it just really, really slows you down, and you're going left, and you're going right, and then you're starting again. It's not a track I'd have chosen for the championship, but opinions are there to be had. I'd have preferred to go somewhere else like Spain or Austria or somewhere. But look, it's going to be a challenge for every driver, including the races tonight in the no assist. It's they're going out into the they're going out to parts unknown, should we say, because they've never been on this track before. Then you've got the added doubt of a bit of wet track as well. So let's hope Bernie's got those sprinklers and we can have a wet race.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guys, especially seeing that wet weather come down at the start of the race, and it will definitely make them possibly a little bit more cautious heading into turn 1 and turn 2. And Boogster says, I think P2 will lock up and hit P1, which would, of course, be an absolute disaster for Joel, who set that perfect time on the Ultra Softs to put himself in provisional pole position. But yeah, it will be particularly harder for the guys following behind. They'll just kind of have to make sure they're on the brakes possibly a fraction of a second earlier than what they would do usually. And we're just waiting here for the guys to all rejoin the league and rejoin the session so we can get started up. Of course, we will be running a custom grid, so they will just be running through that. We see them just discussing at the moment. But yeah, guys, Sab, thanks for following the stream. It was great to have you on board, mate. Of course, guys, if you are not following following this channel, feel free to click that button and follow us. It's the more followers we can get, the more we can push it out and get towards the partnered level, where of course we can start streaming out to more and more people. But yeah, so if you have got any questions, guys, feel free to drop them into the comments. I am watching them come down, so it's always good to hear from you what you think is going to happen today, whether you think there's going to be any team orders come into play, or whether you think there's a driver that's potentially going to use the wet weather to his advantage. And how do you find yourself adapting for a wet weather session, Tom, compared to a dry? Do you feel that is there anything you look to do, whether it's before the race or whether it's during the race? Do you tune your car any differently as to how you would usually?
I have a lot of I have a lot more cost. No, I had a lot more extra wing, a lot more weaving in the formation lap, kept the heat in the tyres, and I tried to maintain the heat in the tyres. When it eventually gets to the transitional phase, I like to try and keep the tyres cool, if you will, by consistently down straights running the wet line, so you get a bit more extra grip when you come back on the dry line, something like that. Apart from that, I'll be completely honest. I don't practice in the wet. I probably should. That's probably one of the reasons why I've never done well in the wet. I'm a bit like Jacques Villeneuve, who was never good in the wet. When it's dry, I'm completely happy. But the wet, it can happen. It throws it up. And what I do like about a wet session is that it could take a while for the tyres to turn on. So it's whoever's got the best one-to-one car control. That's what it'll be initially, until the tyres actually get up temperature, they get grip, they get into the circuit, and you're going to be looking at the people who've got the better setup, put more downforce. I definitely say more downforce. You don't want high ballast because your back end's going to be dragged down top of every corner. Can I also just say hello to Alan Sabatino. He's a McLaren fan. He believes in McLaren. We've got a ball lever, so
absolutely. And good evening.
Alan.
Good evening, Jamie. Good to have you in the thing. Jamie says it's not a heavy braking zone, should be okay. Yeah, hopefully that is the case for the guys, as we're just awaiting them to finish off setting up the custom grid for the session and make sure that the weather will be or should be set up for the same as it was. Yes, it is. So the guys are just discussing it right now, just making sure we're all ready to go. Hopefully, straight back into the session. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see just how these guys attack that first portion of the race. Whether the AI allows you to sort of have that sort of drizzly start with. We know that these super soft tyres work. Of course, the harder the compound tyres, the harder or the better they work when it comes to lower track surface temperature. So the super softs will work slightly better than the ultras as the track gets wetter and wetter. But of course, if these guys on the ultras I believe it was Chill and Joel in first and second, if they can use that first lap to just stretch a 1 or 2 second lead over the guys behind, it will essentially give them a perfect choice of coming in for those intermediates and possibly coming out ahead of the guys as they make a charge from behind.
Yeah, that's the race start. I think it'll be the guys at the front that are looking to get away. It's more the midfield and the back who'll be looking to try and avoid any incidents because the first corner is quite fast, and I think you have a lot of people getting caught up with the braking zone. You know, they're going to attempt to brake a bit later on, as they would if they're doing a hot lap. I don't think they're going to take into account the cars in front of them that'll also be braking. So it'll be interesting. It'd be interesting to see if that happens anyway. But that's my perception of the start. You want to be near the front so you can kind of get through that first section nice and quick. It's only going to be more the guys in the middle to the rear who are going to come under pressure in that first corner. But like I said earlier on, I hope it's a wet starting race on dry tyres. To me, and I'm sure to you viewers out there, it'll be an absolute nightmare to race in. But as spectators who I've invested as a commentator here, I also want to be entertained. It'd be nice to see them driving round with tyres that have got no grip, especially in the wrong conditions, and seeing you can control it the best. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, as we just joined the session here, and very interesting one there from Sav, who says one thing that will be interesting to see is the pit entrance and exit. The entrance is sharp right and the exit runs straight into the racing line, so especially in this wet condition, these guys trying to get it slowed down after the exit of the final corner into the pit lane. That's that sharp right hander that goes straight into the pit lane, and of course feeding out onto the racing line, which we saw of course last season in the actual reality, just how tricky it can be with cars feeding out right into the guys that are coming down that main straight. And you've really got to have eyes in the back of your head as you come out of the pit lane to make sure that you're not drifting straight into the path of an oncoming car that would potentially end both of your races pretty seismically and with pretty catastrophic damage, I can imagine, with the guys behind having to miss this debris that can potentially cause punctures.
Possibly, Gareth. Yeah, you have to see if you're tough enough to stick it on the right hand side coming down the straight, especially when we're getting quite a few laps into this race, because you don't want to take that gamble of somebody coming in, somebody might not be coming in, so it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely, and the guys, they just know it coming out the pit lane here. It's essentially you're coming from out of nowhere, so it's a real eye opener for the guys coming down the main straight if they see possibly a Red Bull just appearing directly in front of them. So yeah, like we said, you've really got to keep your eye on where you're going and where you're putting your car, which it can be quite tricky for the guys as they're heading down the straights. You usually got an eye on your ERS or your eye on your fuel consumption, just flicking over your settings. So it adds a little bit of extra spice to what's going to be a very interesting race.
No, absolutely. You're protecting that front wing like your chin. You'll be looking after it. You're looking out for all where the blows could come from, and you'll be looking to avoid them all and try to keep a nice clean race and keep any damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, still setting up here. Definitely, yes. We see the guys now starting to ready up. We should be ready to go. We will look to see if we're going to go straight into the race or if we're going to go have another formation lap. I believe we should have another formation lap. Let the guys go out on that installation lap. We will find out if Charlie Whiting's going to allow them that privilege of one more tour around to get the cars ready. No, looks like we're going. No, yeah, we are going to a green light lap. But as I say that, the Force India and the McLaren spawn on top of each other. So yeah, not the greatest start for the Force India team. But it's Joel that Joel will lead the field around in the Force India. Chiltern Island in the McLaren sits behind him in second. It's going to be SJD 1988 in third position with Nicky 9095 in fourth. Delange sits in fifth alongside Jos Heinze in sixth, and it's Speed Queen 80 in seventh, who's got Scopefielder for company in eighth, with Renner 9 in ninth. Alongside Humberstone, so Humberstone looking to attack the field earlier on this session, trying to move himself up, and it's going to be
get in there.
Mike in 11th place and Malk in 12th place, with Phil in 13th and Tony sitting on the back row of the grid with him in 14th in the Ferrari. So the Ferrari going to be very strong early on in the session, so look to see Tony make a good start. We see some of these guys have that slight issue when it comes to getting grip off the rest. It looks like it may just be a disqualification. Yeah, it looks like it may just be a disqualification there.
it's survival of the fittest. Gareth, sorry to cut you off there. We've got rain, much to our delight and much to the racers' grimace. We're absolutely delighted because they're on dry tyres and a track which is going to get wetter because they're going to be sat on the grid. They're going to be waiting. The track's going to be getting wet. You're not going to have 14 Formula 1 cars, which are the best at removing water from the track. So you're going to have a track which is going to be having lime water, which is going to be there for quite a few minutes now, so it's going to be interesting. I mean, what is the transitional period? What will be the transition? Is it going to be 2 laps? Is it going to be 3 laps? Is it going to be 4 laps? You have to imagine that the guys on Ocean Soft are probably going to do the best at this stage of the race with the addition of the grip, but it'll be very minor, especially with the wet conditions. As we begin to get the drivers lining up, we've got Joel, who will be feeling quite anxious and nervous now in P1 as it gets wet all around him. A little puddle splash there as he pulls his car up. Chino lines up second, SJD third, fourth Nicky in the Force India. So you've also got 2 drivers in the same team lining up in the top 10 when there could be a potential pit with the Force Indias. We've also got the Red Bulls in there, and I'll go over to you now, Gareth, you can call the start.
Yeah, so with 4 red lights, 5 red lights, and we are ready to go in France, and they are off, and Joel gets a great start in Force India. Chill alongside him, and also another decent start. Everyone gets away pretty cleanly so far. We'll see what it's like going down into turn 1. Joel gets a good release into turn 1. There's a little bit of contact towards the back with the Mercedes. It looked like that was Mike and the Mercedes also struggling, but it's going to be Joel that leads the guys down into turn 3 in the lead. He's got a 0.5 of a gap over Chiln Island in second place. It looks like everyone's had a clean getaway so far. The rain not affecting these dry tyres just yet. And Joel already stretching out that lead over Chiln Island in seconds, up to 0.8 of a second, who's got a lead over SJD in third position, up to 0.9 himself. So the guys spreading themselves out a little bit. We see Jos having a look at Nicky ever so slightly going down into the chicane. Doesn't quite get the move done there. So Jos just lining himself out behind the Force India once again as we head back down the straight towards turn 10. You can see cars fighting down the rear end of the grid, and it's just Nicky who stays just behind us. We've got a battle for third position at the moment between Nicky, SJD and Jos, who are all battling over the podium position at the moment on lap 1.
I'm just looking at further down the back of the grid there, Gareth, as you commented on the front. You had Mike at the start who knocked Tony away off, and he took the full advantage of the runoff area as he came back on in front of Tony, which is unfortunate for Tony. They've at least thought he'd have given the position back. Mark has also dropped down 2 places to 14th. The biggest gain there, so 5 been Phil from 13th to 9th place. As they go across the line for the first lap, Tony White P1, P2 Chiln Island in the McLaren, SJD in the Red Bull, and you got Nicky coming up the inside into turn 1 for move on SJD. Nicky will be furious. He'll be hoping to get up through the grid to try and get ahead of Joe, because he will know, looking at the cars and the way they are now, that if it comes to pitting under these conditions and you get more and more wet, the need for the intermediate tyres, that Joe will have the optimum pit stop and he will take full advantage. Unless Nicky tries to do something clever and call the pit stop early, he'd be just hoping that Force India keeps going past that final corner and down to the first corner so he can pit ahead of him. But now SJD behind the back of Chiln Island. No, SJD keep taking the attention of Nicky into this area, into the chicane. Nicky goes alongside and he picks his pocket and up the inside into P3. 2 Force Indias once again running 1 and 3. They will be absolutely delighted. Now, SJD, is he going to come back at Nicky with the Renault-powered Tag Heuer badged engine? Is he going to get close? No, he's not. You've got Jos Sainz running very well, as he did last week in the Toro Rosso Honda. Tlange running solidly, yet unspectacularly in 6th, holding off Speed Queen, currently in 7th place on the Ultrasoft. Renner in 8th in the Renault, Phil 9th in the Sauber, and Humberstone in the McLaren round out the top 10.
Absolutely, and Nicky running slightly wide there. That's allowed SJD and the Red Bull to just slowly catch up to the rear end of the Force India as they head in towards the final few corners. As you see, Chiln Island there losing a little bit of time there, get all out of shape as they headed into turn 14 very easy, and he's lost a whole bunch of time there. And Chiln Island now all essentially being that time just being completely etched away, and Nicky's going to be right up the rear end of the McLaren as they go into turn 1 and turn 2. That fast sweeping chicane, it's very easy to run wide onto that runoff area on the exit of turn 2.
Nicky up inside of Chiln Island. We're going to have a Force India 1 and 2. The people's elbows out as he forces Chill Neyland off the track. He looks like he could be suffering. He could be in for another shock as SJD and the Red Bull comes up alongside. Is he going to get it? No, he does. Another elbow. Two people's elbows to Chill Neyland as he drops from P2 to P4. Both drivers be knowing how important it is track position at the moment. And let's see what's happened here. Tony White and Mike have had another coming together. I'll leave that as my only comment on that, as we see the Force Indias 1 and 2, SJD in the Red Bull and 3, Chill Neyland in 4th, Jos Heinz in the Toro Rosso powered Honda. The Honda powered Toro, I don't know, one of the ways.
We've got Delange and Speedqueen going side by side into turn 10. It's going to be very brave of them. They're going to get caught by Renault 9, so it's going to make it a 3-car battle. It was an absolutely superb battle for the guys heading down into the chicane at turn 8 and turn 9 there. Side by side they went through the chicane. Speedqueen got the move done. Delange kept up the inside, just about got the move done, and he's just kept 6th position, but it's now invited the Renault of Renault 9 into the battle with these guys for 6th position. Of course, Renault unfortunate in Hungary last week, where he spun on the start-finish line, hit the wall there, and it dropped him down out of a decent points-paying position. Renault looking to attack for essentially a mid or top 5 potentially finish from Renault 9 would be a decent result for him, but he's got to get past the woman with the pedigree for no assist, and that is Speed Queen 80, and that's going to be a real tall ask for the Renault driver.
It's going to be a hell of a slobber knocker as the race wears on, as Chill Neyland is struggling for grip at the moment, and he has come into the Cobra clutch of Jos Heinz, who's getting closer and closer in the Toro Rosso. He's going to try and go around the outside. A nice move by Jos Heinz in the fast section here at the Paul Ricard circuit, and Speed Queen Delange in the run down in the first DRS. Is Speed Queen have enough kick in that Williams on the back of the Haas? No, not at this point in the race. We'll have to look back later on, as a 2 Force Indias are very, very close now. Who's going to... And Joel is going to tag Nicky, and Nicky's going to go through. Nicky goes through at P1 and takes advantage, full advantage of when the pit stop window opens. Nicky will have first choice. Absolutely fantastic first 4 laps for the Force India driver. Very well done to Nicky. And yellow flags in sector 2. Is it Mike again? No, it's not. It's Malk who's been spun. Malk's been spun, and he's coming on the soft, so he's probably the first to struggle with the lack of grip on a wet surface circuit. So let's see what goes on as we have another rundown as Chill Neyland. Delange is bringing more of the attention of Speed Queen. Speed Queen will be looking desperate to get a move here as Renault has pulled in. We've got a triple threat for 6th place at the moment. No, it's a fatal 4-way. As you can see, Philip MCSC in the background, and Humbostone's also there. We're getting people peeling into the pits. They've had enough.
Yeah, so
I'm trying to come 5 cars pit in at the moment.
It's going to be...
Nicky stayed out, so Joel took full advantage, and I do apologise, Gareth.
No, Joel, you saw him struggling. He was being swamped by SJD in 2nd place, but it looks like they've decided to... That's all they can do on those tyres, the guys that were on the Ultra Softs. So you can see just how much they were starting to struggle, and Nicky is going to be out there on a lap alongside SJD and Speed Queen, but it was Delange, Chill Neyland, Phil, Scopefield, Tony and Malk all coming in for the set of intermediates to start off the session, and we know that the rain is supposed to get heavier, so potentially moving to extreme wets later in the race. So Nicky at the moment leading, doing a very nice job.
Yeah, Mike's lost it on the super softs. He did that for an extra lap. He was in the middle of the intermediate run as he was causing them all sorts of problems, as he looks like he's making his own layout of the Paul Ricard circuit. We all know there's plenty of layouts on this track, so hopefully he'll find his way using one of them to the pits, as Nicky stayed out. Which, is that a good idea? Is it a bad idea? I'm not so sure. As also Speed Queen also stayed out, so Speed Queen on the Ultra Soft. So it's interesting to see we've got the Ultra Soft and the Super Soft runners staying out. I need to look at the gap now to see how close Joel can get to the leader. The gap is currently 24.4 seconds. I don't know the pit stop length for this track. I'll be inclined to say the gap's coming down. It's just 24 seconds now. So I think it'll be a bit touch and go for Nicky to come in the pits, because it looks like at the moment he is literally walking on eggshells as he pits. SJD also pits. So
yeah, just getting
two people. tagging out in this phase of the race.
A load of penalties there. Just as we saw Delange picking up a 5-second penalty there for severe collision with Phil MCFC. The two are currently sitting next to each other, fighting over 10th and 11th. We can see just how much the pace has slowed down since the guys moved on to the Ultrasos. As you see,
P1.
everyone pitting, and Joel does take the lead. So using that undercut, he's absolutely annihilated this lead. He's going to have a huge lead over SJD, who is going to come across the line in second place. So Nicky, having started with a 2.8 second lead when they first came in, is now going to be down in third place by almost 8 seconds. So disaster for Nicky 9095, who just stayed out that lap too long on those dry tyres.
Power slam by Joel. He lost first place to Nicky. I spoke about this at the start of the race, that Nicky would be looking to make up positions to take advantage of the pit stop window, but he did not. He didn't. He stayed out the extra lap, and he now finds himself on the verge of being counted out. He's nearly 8 seconds behind Joel in P1, also being jumped by SJD in the pits. SJD came in behind Nicky. He's come out in front. He now has a gap of 4 seconds. The thing is now, Gareth, this phase of the race, it's going to be who does turn on the intermediate tyres at this phase of the race. SJD, I'd have to comment now, this opening lap, he's already took a second out of Joel's lead. So you have to imagine the Red Bull will run well here anyway with wet conditions. We know that the aerodynamicist is Adrian Newey, so that'll be running a lot of downforce. As the gap's coming down further, Jos Heinz has come up to 4th place. He's obviously took over where Delange was running. Chil Nealand getting a bit of rest from his earlier skirmishes. He's come in 5th place. Scopefielder running well once again, like he has for the last few weeks, and Speed Queen managing to stay in 7th place with the attentions of Renner behind. Let's have a quick flick through to see if everybody is running on the intermediates, as Phil decides he doesn't like this current layout of the Paul Ricard. He's going to make his own layout as he goes through the barriers in turn 1. No, down the main straight, I do apologise. Malk on inters, the last to pit. Tony on inters. He's brought himself back into the race. Humble Snow has got a 3-second penalty for Nicky, so that's unfortunate. So you have to take into account the penalty. The gap to Joel is now 9.7 seconds, so disaster for the Force India driver at the moment.
Yeah, I believe that's Nicky's second penalty of the race as well. I believe he picked up a penalty for corner cutting earlier on, so Nicky definitely going to be in trouble with the circuit stewards after the race. Might have to go up with a slightly bashful face and apologise for extending the track and making it work for himself. And we saw, I don't know if you've got the same telemetry on your screen as I have, Tom, but Mike he's decided he didn't even want to consider the intermediates, and he's gone out on the extreme wets, and he's circulating on the extreme wets, possibly in anticipation of the rain coming a little bit heavier, but it doesn't look like we're there yet. You can't see any puddles forming. As we see Jos has retired from the session. Can't see where it is on circuit. He must have lost control earlier on in the race, earlier on in the lap, but can't see anywhere where that could have happened. It's pretty extreme to hit the wall.
I'm trying to look now
on here.
I'm bored of Malk. Malk should be going past where he lost it. Let's see if I can see it. No, unless he's lost it the chicane. I can't see where.
So that's really, really unfortunate there for Jos. Of course, last week's winner, who is same sort of result as we've seen with a lot of our winners so far this season, where they tend to do very well one race and then either finish out of the points or just below or retire from the next race. As we see Humberstone, he's just about kept that McLaren in a straight line. They just put the power on a little bit too early, trying to chase down Delange 93 in 8th position. Humberstone was all over the rear end of him going into the final sector, but coming out the final corner just lit the rear tyres of that McLaren up a little bit too much, and it was luckily,
and Phillips left
as Phil leaves the session as well. So we'll hope to see if that was potentially just an issue with Phil's connection, that he might be able to jump back into the cockpit we'll see as he currently drops down to 13th place, so that promotes Mike up into 12th position. Of course, Mike sitting much further behind the grid, having made that second stop and come in for the extreme wets, and the rain looking like it's starting to get heavier as well. Can't see too much spray coming from the rear end of the cars as Mike retires from the session. Commentators curse, and Mike retires on the outside of the final corner. So Phil's driverless car comes into the pit lane. Looks like they might set a new set of extreme wets potentially onto that Sauber.
He's lost his front wing as well. I'm surprised how's he lost it there. It's a slow corner, so especially the rain getting heavy and him on the extreme tyres. So
yeah, unless he came into contact with the rear end of. I can only think he came into contact with the rear end of Mike, who was on the outside on the runoff area of the final corner at turn 15. So, as we will quickly just go up and check on him with Scopefielder, who's catching up to the rear end of Chiltern Island, and he's going to get caught as well. We've got a little bit of a train forming here between the McLaren, the Toro Rosso, the Williams and the Renault of Scopefielder, or Chiltern Island, Scopefielder, Speed Queen and Renault, all within a second and a half of each other. Toro Rosso much closer. Chill, who's not enjoyed this wet conditions. We saw last season as well, Chill not particularly enjoying the wet sessions, but Scopefielder so far doing very nicely indeed. Of course, these guys that are new to the No Assist League haven't had a wet race or a wet session at all so far, so this is all new territory for these guys.
I'm a fan of Scopefielder. I'm probably his. Oh no! As Chill Nealand makes it easy for Scopefielder and loses it coming into the DRS straight. How unfortunate is that? The four-way dance is now a triple threat for 4th place, and it's Scopefielder at the moment who is sitting king of the mountain in the battle for 4th with Speed Queen close behind, bringing on the attentions of Renner. Disaster for the McLaren driver, Chill Nealand, who has lost the left side of his end plate, which is very unfortunate for himself. He's hoping to come in, get a new wing put on and go back out again and try to pick up a position or two, because you have to know in conditions like this, Gareth, anything can happen. You're best off staying out and just cruising around, because you might pick up an essential point for later on in the season. As SJD has wound in Joe, he has an half, but he's pitted, so SJD's going to be going for the extreme wets. He was catching Joe, he was within a second, so let's see what happens here.
Yeah, brave decision from SJD there. He's going to be the first one to come in from the front runners and put on the extreme wets, and he does. So it's the blue walled extreme wet tyres. Of course, the most amount of grooves on them to clear as much water as possible. So we see Humberstone dive down the inside of Delange going into the final corner. Oh, Delange has lost the car and unfortunately speared across the front of the McLaren. The McLaren, who's also then collected the pit wall. We saw the comment from Sav saying earlier, saying that it's going to be tricky for these guys to get it slowed down in time for the pit lane. So really unfortunate there for Delange, who was running in 8th place there. It's going to drop down now. Humberstone is going to go out on the extreme wets, and luckily for the McLaren team there, it looked like they just about had enough time to reset as they double step.
5-second penalty there for Delange. We spoke about this in the pre-race briefing of the stewards, to be wary and cautious of the pit entry. Delange should have probably gone around another lap to avoid such collision, which is a shame, but hopefully the race stewards will come down hard on that, because it was a misdemeanor, but one we've previously spoken about.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see just how wet the circuit's got just now, and I'm on board with Joel V520, who's currently leading the race. He pitted the perfect opportunity to come off the dries onto the wets, but it looks like he may have stayed out. He's drifting that Pink Panther around turn 13, and Tony White picks up a 3-second time penalty, multiple warnings, and it's going to be really tricky for these guys to keep it in a straight line. Surely Joel, he's just going to be hemorrhaging time to SJD, who came in a lap earlier, and yeah, Joel crawling into the pit lane, just about gets it stopped in time.
Yellow flag sector 2, what's going on? We've got our course guides out there looking for you. We've got Phil being lapped by Renner. That was the only issue I could see, but it's really, really wet at the moment as Joe comes out of the pits. Is currently in the lead. Is Nicky... No, Joe, SJD! SGD has an opportunity for P1. He comes out ahead of the Force India. Once again, a clown spec pit stop by the Force India team. They left Nicky out too long last time round, and this time round they've left Joel out too long, and SJD has picked his pocket and took the opportunity to take this race win.
Absolutely, it's trouble in paradise for the Force Indias, who were doing so well at the top and are currently now, having led the race, both Nicky and Joel at some point have been right up at the top of the standings. They've really struggled, and it's now the Red Bull of SJD, and you can see just how much the rain is coming down as they go down the back straight. This is going to be so tricky for these guys to keep it on track surface, but SJD is doing an absolutely masterful job so far, keeping on that slightly dry line, trying to shift as much water as possible using that extreme wet tyres. And like we said during qualifying, it's going to be really tricky for these guys to keep it online going around this fast turn 10. As you see SJD doing a perfect job there. I'm hoping not to curse them. You find ourselves cursing these guys so often, but SJD proving us wrong at the moment, keeping the Red Bull on the track surface, and he's stretched out that lead against Joel to 2.4 seconds. So nightmare there for Joel, who just couldn't get the grip on the intermediates on that lap.
No, absolutely. He'll be SJD will be looking not to go to sleep at this stage of the race. He's got he's only 11 laps in, but it feels like we've been racing for such a long time. We've still got 16 laps to go, so SJD has still got a long battle with himself in these conditions, and also with the attentions of Joel behind, because this race is not over yet.
Absolutely not, and we've had our first driver report in there as Mike goes into the media pen a little bit earlier and says unfortunately for him it's his first wet laps on the 2018 game were not great at all and he didn't enjoy it. So yeah, we do feel for you there, Mike, and hopefully you've got yourself a little bit drier than what you were out there, and you've managed to get yourself back into the garage and a little bit warmer than what it looks like out on circuit. As you can see just how much spray is being kicked up from the rear end of these cars at the moment. So these guys, you can see that there's quite a big gap in between each car at the moment, and I can't imagine just how nasty it will be following a car with that spray coming directly onto the visor of your helmet in front. So these guys really concentration is going to be absolutely key as we go into the almost midway of the race.
Absolutely, Gareth. It's going to be a case of who is the macho man, who is going to give it their all for these conditions. They're going to have to put everything on the line and see who can cope with it the best, because these are not the easiest of conditions to drive in, never mind racing.
No, absolutely not. The closest battle we've got on circuit at the moment is Chiln Island down in 10th position, looking at the rear end of the Haas of Delange 93 in 9th position. Delange, after that spin heading towards the pit lane, unfortunately it doesn't look like he's lost that much time, but it looks like the McLaren is going to attack him going down into the chicane. It's going to be close. Chiln deciding against it, slows down the car, possibly decided that he wasn't going to get the grip offline, where it's slightly, you can see just how many puddles are starting to build up, but Delange slightly slower out of the exit of turn 9. That's going to allow Chiln to have a look at him possibly going into turn 10. It would be incredibly brave. No, he decides against it once again. You can see just how tentative these guys are being. In fact, what we will do is we'll go on board with Chiln Island and we'll see what it's like from his point of view as he sits behind Delange. He's gonna, yeah, you can see just how much he's having to feather that throttle pedal, and you can hear just how much
backhand, yeah,
it's just not wanting to point in the straight line at all. And I mean, I'm sure we can all sympathise with these guys. This is the last, or the least of the conditions these guys wanted when it came to this race.
No, absolutely, Gareth. It's a crucial stage in the race now. SJD seems to have opened the gap up further over Joel, making the advantage of the Red Bull chassis count. Nicky running well in third, obviously starting in fourth place. Scorpio there doing well. He's got nobody around at the moment. He's got a decent gap to Renner. Obviously, he had the earlier battle with himself and Charles Neeland, which was a bit of a triple threat. He had the challenge of Speed Queen coming on as well, and Humberstone Something's going nicely. He's not doing anything spectacular, but he's not made any mistakes. And he's running well in 7th place, picking up 4 points at the moment.
So we see, still sitting on board with Chill, who's going to... Oh, he really put the power down early. Possibly a little bit too early. He looked like he was going to have a better run on Delange going down into turn 8, but once again, he's not quite close enough. But he takes a much nicer line on the inside of turn 8. He's going to get a nicer run out of turn 9. Where he kisses those curbs, but the curbs are not going to be your friend in this weather. They're going to be absolutely lethal. They're just going to be wet paint like ice cubes. It's going to be... yeah, you can see he's lost a little bit of time there, so Chill pushing a little bit too hard, possibly trying to get past Delange, and you can see guys up the front. So Scopefielder's doing very nicely, just circulating currently in 4th position. Renner 9 also in 5th position, so Renner doing nicely as we saw last week. It was doing quite consistently, currently sitting in 5th position, so the Renault team will be quite happy with that. As you see, yeah, we're still on board here with Chill, and he's... oh, you can see just how he's having to drift the car round the final 2 corners. Don't put the power on too early, you'll find yourself pointing in the wrong direction. He doesn't, but yeah, you can see just Delange is starting to stretch a little bit of a lead out, and we'll now move up. Yeah, we'll go on board with Speed Queen, and she's starting to close up to the rear end of Renner 9 in the Renault. Tom, I'll let you talk our way through this one.
Oh, thank you. As we come on to the left-right chicane, normally you drop down to 4th gear, carry it through the pace. You might be going down another gear due to no assist. No, 4th gear, just nurse the car through the corners. Now back onto the main straight. Renault in the Renault. You have to imagine that Speed Queen with the Williams donkey in the back is going to be in that slipstream. Nice and controlled 8th gear entry to the fast right-hander, down to the slow left-hander. Normally 6th, 5th gear, but in these conditions you want to keep the rev, so stay in 7th. Now she drops down to 5th to take the tight right-hander to the open left-hander, which is going to take us down the main straight. Is she close enough to have an attack down to turn 1? Not at the moment. You see Renner looks like he's got the better traction coming out of the corners, but obviously Speed Queen's got the better straight line speed at the moment. Let's have a look now as Renner's back end starts to dance away from him. Let's see the acceleration out the corner. But yeah, Renner easily early on the power than Speed Queen. There's a little bit of a kink coming out with that final corner. Up to 7th gear, 8th gear, possibly in 6th gear because of the wet. Let's have a look. No, down to 5th. As we move up now, see if there's any more battles going on. You know, you've still got Chill Neiland. Chill Neiland went off. Malk's there behind him. You're going to have got a freeway battle for 9th place. Delange, is Malk going to... oh, Malk getting really close to Chill Neiland now. I think it was Tony who actually went off. Delange, is Delange got any damage? Because Chill Neiland is all over the back of him. As they take the run down to turn 1, he's going to get on the power earlier. Chill Neiland. But the Renault doesn't seem to have the power of the Ferrari. He'll be getting sucked into that slipstream. He'll be getting closer and closer and closer. I think he needs to be cautious. He doesn't need to just go for goal. Go for gold. He can take his time and get the move done properly, and he can feel like the $1 million man, and he can get that move done nice and clean.
Yeah, Delange really running the ropes tonight with the engine in the back of that Haas, just licking up as soon as possible. Just you see him just getting really twitchy coming out some of the slow corners, and he's starting to find himself coming under attack from Chill. And we saw coming out of the final corner in turn 15 that Malk, who was doing nicely, just caught up to the rear end of these two, but he just kept the Red Bull from out of the wall, and as you saw him light up the rear tyres exiting the final corner, we just saw the cameras just about picked up the Red Bull just snaking its way down the main straight as the two go
wide. Has he got it? Has he got it? Oh, Delange giving him space. Very generous from Delange, but Chill Neiland couldn't get the power down without the rears kicking out, and Delange has managed to get a bit of breathing room. We'll stay on board with this because it seems to be the closest battle on track at the moment, or at least one more lap as Delange. Chill Neiland, nearly loses the back end into this slow section. He's looking the more confident out of the two, and look at that, he's so intense. He will be intense. He's into the car. He can feel every little movement. He's correcting every little error, and he's running very well. And he corrects that one. Delange is getting more breathing space. I think we better not stay on board with these, because if we stay on board with them, Gareth, they appear not to be fighting. And Malk's close enough now. Malk's managed to dust himself down, and he's having another challenge. He's going to have another go for ninth place. Is he going to double his points collection at the moment? Is he going to get close enough? Both with the Renault engines, doesn't appear to be.
Yeah, Chill Nyland had a really scrappy lap there, dropped just under a second and a half behind Delange. He just found himself running offline ever so slightly, getting off into those puddles and just aquaplaning ever so slightly, especially coming around Town 12 and Turn 13. Just lost all traction, and that allowed the Red Bull of Malk to cruise up to the rear end of these two, and you can see Delange slowly being reeled in by the two behind him. So none of them really looking like they've got the confidence to make a move, as you see Chill still struggling to get the power down on that McLaren at the right points, but he's going to be much closer to the back end. Delange, you can see he's in level 3, he's dropped down to level 2 of ERS, so these guys, they've got a lot of ERS left for the rest of the race, as Chill is drifting his way around the chicane, but he's going to take the inside line. That's we're all...
This could be it. This could be it for 8th place. I've noticed the lap before, that's where Delange was struggling to get the power down. Let's see now. He's going to try and come back underneath him, is he? Especially with these conditions, it could be awful tricky. And Malk has picked his pocket and goes up the inside. A very, very, very nice move by Malk.
Yeah. Malk there, great move down the inside of Chill. Chill just got slightly...
just went at the inside while Chill was in a battle with Delange, and the opportunist takes a position.
Absolutely, and he just saw Chill get offline and just lose traction ever so slightly, just threw it down the inside going into turn 10 in the wet. So an absolutely fantastic move there from Malk. That's F1 WWFC, and he's now on the rear end of Delange, and he's going to be right in the toes. They head down towards turn 1, so it's going to be really brave stuff here from Malk, and he's going to get slowed down in time. He's not quite got the move done, but he's going to be close, and he's definitely, you see twitching out a little bit, and you can see he's slightly offline, and that's going to allow Chill to come right up behind the back of him once again. So these three just trading positions at the moment. No one's really got any grip. It's each lap they're finding themselves, trying to find a new line, trying to shift that water off the race surface as possible. You can see just how treacherous it looks offline on the circuit. His mount goes majorly wide there.
His pocket, I was going to say, I've been watching. And he takes the sign down with him. I've been watching this on board cam, but I've now switched to broadcast, and it's what a fascinating battle it is between the three of them. You've got Delange on top of the ladder at the moment. He's leading this battle of the three. He's at the top. He's got the title of 8th place, and you've got Chill Nyland and Malk just taking blows between themselves to have the right to challenge. It's almost like the battle to become the #1 contender for Delange's 8th place at the moment.
Absolutely. I've just quickly gone on board with Humberstone in the McLaren, who's starting to reel in the Renault 9 in 6th position. Humberstone looking at extending his lead in the championship, heading into the Italian Grand Prix next week as we head to Monza, and hopefully much nicer conditions for the guys to be driving. And of course you wouldn't expect to be coming to the south of France and bringing your umbrella with you, but these guys unfortunately look to have come at the wrong time of year. But Humberstone now 0.6 of a second behind Renault 9 in 6th position, and they're not too far away from the rear end of Speed Queen, who's around 8.6 seconds away from Scopefielder in 4th, who's circulating quite nicely and consistently. So Scopefield are doing quite well, but it's SJD who's stretched out a lead at the top at the moment to 6.3 seconds over Joel. So Joel, he was doing absolute wonders in the dry, but he just doesn't have the pace when it comes to the wet.
No, he does not. It's a bit unfortunate that we've not been able to see that as we normally would in the dry. So it's Gareth, have we had any questions today to ourselves? Ask Stiffy or #ask Tom?
Of course, we'll send it into the comments, and we know there's a lot of you watching tonight, so feel free to drop any questions in. Just feel free to put hashtag #AskTom, hashtag #AskStiff if you've got anything you'd like us to talk about. If you've got any questions for us, we're quite happy to get engaged and enjoying conversation with you.
Good evening to our fans and viewers in the Invictus universe, as we've just lost Tony from the race. I don't know what's happened there. Tony in the Ferrari has decided I'm not too keen on France in November, as he's dropped out of the race. Phil will be coming past him, but I don't think Phil's racing at the moment. I'm pretty sure Phil's just letting his car be lapped, and hopefully he can pick up a point here or there. SJD, we haven't really spoke about the leader at the moment. We haven't had to. He's been in the League of One ever since the second pit stops. He's managed to build up a sizable advantage over Joel, which is a 6.8 second. Nicky further back, 15 seconds behind. You then got a sizable gap as well to Schofielder in fourth. Another solid race by Schofielder, but he's also been it's a lapped car. It's lapped Phil. I thought it was Speakling behind him. Obviously the Saubers and the Williams look quite similar from the front on the season's game. You've got the battle between the two Renault powered cars in 6th and 7th, between Renault and Humberstone. You've got Delange still keeping off the attentions of Malk in 8th place, and Chill Nealand, who's managed to recover from his earlier misdemeanor. I think he just touched the corner and ran off, and he just goes wide again. He goes straight off. This could be a 3-second time penalty, because it doesn't look like he's got any intention of coming back on track. Is it? No, it's not a penalty. See, he didn't really gain from there, but he makes his own lines, as many have today. And we still have Malk in 8th, battling for 8th place, but unfortunately Malk cannot get close enough without the DRS as it comes to the chicane section, where Delange has been struggling on entry to this corner. Let's see how close Malk can get in the Red Bull.
Yeah, and we saw Chiln Island behind. He really struggled coming out of turn 7, got offline, ran onto the runoff areas. Joel picks up a 3-second time penalty, so not going to help his cause whatsoever. And you can't fault these guys for picking out penalties. It must be absolutely a nightmare for them to try and keep it on the black stuff today. And I say keep it on the black stuff, unfortunately here at Paul Ricard it is all the black stuff, but to keep it on the track surface itself. But it's a moment. It's Malk that's closest battle we've got on track.
Move.
Yeah, 0.5 of a second behind Delange 93 for 8th position. And Malk having a positive race today. He's definitely not enjoyed the start of the season. We saw him have as I say that, there you go, 5-second stop-go penalty for corner cutting from Malk there. So
5 seconds at the end. I don't imagine he'll pit again. But he looks a lot more confident between the two on the faster corners. That's what I've noticed. Making the Red Bull count to his full advantage is it's going to be a bit of a handicap match for Malk now. He's going to be having a 5 seconds less to Delange. He'll be hoping to get past Delange and build a 5-second advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is they've dropped Chiln Island completely, who's now almost 5 seconds behind. So Chill, after being in this battle, which was a pretty exciting 3-car battle for 8th, 9th and 10th, is now just the two-way between Malk and Delange for 8th and 9th, as Chill now sits 4.6 seconds behind.
Oh, Chill, Delange has done a little bit of weaving there on the main straight, trying to hold off Malk. Malk's going to come up the inside. Oh, no, he didn't go through, unfortunately. No, Malk trying to intimidate, he's lost it.
Oh, that's really unfortunate for Malk there, and he'll be absolutely, and he just about keeps the Red Bull out of the walls. You could see just how frustrated he was with himself there, just put the power on a little bit too early, and really unfortunate there for Malk, who was doing so well to attack the rear end of Delange for 8th position. Yeah, the guys in the comments, it's really unfortunate there for Malk, who was doing a great job, giving us some great entertainment here in the race, but unfortunately for him, he's now going to be sitting in 10th place and quite a distance behind Chiln Island in 9th position. So, a disappointing end to the race for F1 WWFC 07.
True, but I think he'd have took that if you offered him at the start of the race. He started in 12th, he was up there battling for 8th. He knows he could have had it if not for that mistake just then, so he'd be quite happy to still consolidate 10th position, especially in these conditions. I'm just wondering now if Chell Nealand is going to be catching Delange. It doesn't look like he's going to be at this moment, as we've got Humberstone and Renner, the closest battle presently on track. No, Speed Queen's dropped into the clutches of Renner, so we could have another freeway battle. As Humberstone's left, what has happened here? No, I believe he's just disconnected. I don't think he's actually left like he's retired or been taken out. He's currently running in seventh, so at the moment he will, if the position's still like this, he will take seventh place. But as we go back now, further up, as we see Speed Queen and Renner, who are going to be battling for that fifth place position. Scottfield appears to be still in a league of one, as does Nicky, unless Nicky can gain a few more seconds and get closer to Joel, who also has a time penalty, but I think Nicky has one as well. SJD, it's just a leisurely Sunday drive in the south of France at the moment for him and his Red Bull. There's a 7.8 second advantage over Joel.
Yeah, really unfortunate there for Humbo Stone, who of course is our current championship leader. Dropping out the session, we saw him have issues in the first aborted start that made him leave the session early, and he was starting to get onto the back end of Renner 9, who's looking slightly racy on the rear end of Speed Queen, who possibly had a scruffy lap. She's now starting to extend that lead just over a second, so possibly just had a poor lap there in the Williams and the Renault, just utilising that slightly more powerful engine. Oh, I just say that Renault 9 kicking the rear end coming out of turn 6 there. He's going to compromise himself onto the straight here, and we know just how we've seen guys turn the cars around all along this race, and it's Renault 9 now. It's so in just over a second behind Speed Queen as the closest battle on circuit, and then it's quite a big gap from now to Humbo Stone, who is yet to rejoin the session. So really unfortunate for him, but he's still circulating ahead of Delange, who's 34 seconds behind him. So there's definitely time for Delange to possibly catch up if it's just going to be the AI circulating.
Yeah, it's the closest battle we've got on track at the moment appears to be Speed Queen and Renner. Speed Queen dropping into the bear hug-like clutches of Renner at the moment. The gap is just over a second, so that'll be one we'll keep our eyes on. We'll have a quick look at the race leader. He seems to be still running very nicely. He won't be a concern about any of this going on around him. He's got his ERS off, he's running in lean mix. He's not, I'm only joking. He's running in high mix, he's still taking this race very, very seriously, as the other drivers, especially the top three. They're all the top four are all clear of any traffic at the moment. They're in a race of one like we touched on earlier on, and yeah, the only entertainment at the moment we've got, Gareth, for the next 4 or 5 laps could be the potential one-on-one battle between Speed Queen and Renner.
Absolutely, but I think if you're in the position of SJD 1988, who's currently sitting at the top of the standings, he will not care at all if this is a boring race for anyone else. He'll be quite happy with that 8-second lead, and it's definitely, as we've got a yellow in sector 3. Just double check through who it is. I can't see anyone having gone off through the guys.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 Can't see anyone dropping down at all. So yeah, still flashing up yellow in sector 3. So we'll see if that anyone's times drop off anywhere. But yeah, so SJG definitely hoping it's a new day for him in the season, and that he can start to make a bit of a charge towards the guys at the top, and because he's had a slightly iffy start to the season, and we saw him struggle earlier on, but in the rain in a circuit like this, a win would be an absolute diamond for him. You'd have to be really proud of yourself for the result that he's obviously you don't want to jinx him with 4.5 laps left to go, but this result here would be a real positive for him heading on towards Monza.
Oh, absolutely. It's a new beginning. It's like you said, it's a new day. It's his debut season in the No Assist League, and to take him only 3 races to get his first official No Assists League win is a fantastic achievement. No assists, a new track, these conditions, very well deserved, and we've got a potential new title contender on our hands.
Just on board here with Renault 9 in the Renault, now 0.5 of a second behind Speed Queen, so it's moved up to 0.8 there, so closed up a little bit as they go through what looks like sector 1, heading down in towards turn 3 and 4 and 5, Renner seems to get close and then just get caught out behind the Williams. Doesn't quite know if he's confident enough to push into any of the braking zones. Of course, you have to run offline to get a move done around here, and you just find yourself aquaplaning. The cars do not like running on those puddles, and they'll just start slipping and sliding right in the wrong directions. You see Renner there picking up a 3-second time penalty, so adding to his penalties that we've seen him pick up already. So I don't believe I've seen any flash up for Speed Queen, so potentially Renner, no matter if he gets past not, as we've got a yellow in sector 3. No one in sector 3 I can see, and now a yellow in sector 2.
We'll be having a look there.
Yeah.
We've got a slow moving Scopefield there. Apart from that, I can't see any. Oh, no, we've got a Humberstone. Yeah, Humberstone's spinning. I'm not sure if he's actually taken back control of his car. I can't remember if he's rejoined, but he's lost it there, and he's given Delange a sniff at 7th place. Delange is he's going to be the ultimate opportunist and take it out of nowhere. Yes, he is, and Chill Nealon's going to be looking to come through. Is he going to take Humberstone around the outside? There going to be team orders at McLaren. Yes, there is. He's going to let him through. Chill Nealon looking to maintain the challenge to Delange, and Humberstone drops down to 9th. Unfortunate for him.
Yeah, really gutting there for Humberstone, who was doing nicely to catch up to the rear end of this battle that we're on board with at the moment. That's Speed Queen and Renner 9. Renner still sitting around that 1 second mark behind the Williams, who's Speed Queen. Once again, she's just not getting the pace out of this Williams that should. Well, we know just how fast she can be, but the Williams is just not serving her nicely in this first third of the season so far, as we head towards round 5 next week. We've got a yellow in sector 3 once again. Possibly will be for Phil's car being lapped at the moment, as we see he goes a lap down.
I have to say, in these conditions, the Williams is certainly a bit of a diva somewhat. It's Speed Queen's definitely not been able to get the best performance as she has in Bahrain or Hungary. 2 very strong performances in this car. She'll be hoping that she might be in the Williams again for Monza next week, which with the Mercedes powered, it could play into her hands. And to be honest, I'd say that'd be quite a reasonable allocation, that or the Force India, I'd say, for me, because you've got to see people in this championship who have a long-standing history here. It'd be nice to see her in contention, if potentially in a stronger car as well, but that's for something else, because you've got Joel and Nikki within 2 seconds of each other. That is something we have completely missed. These Force Indias are going to go right to it over the next 2 laps. Who is going to be the Shawn Michaels and who is going to be the Marty Jannetty of this Force India partnership? Here we go, 2 laps to go. Fantastic battle on our hands here, Gareth.
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe it's Joel that made one of the mistakes that brought out the yellow flags, because he was around 7 seconds ahead of Nikki for 3rd position. So Joel definitely making a mistake, and it means the 2 are going to give Otmar Schnafnauer an absolute headache when it comes to the last lap of the race, as they're heading towards the final few corners toward as heading to sector 3 round turn 10 now, as SJD almost 15 seconds up the road crosses the line shortly for I believe it's now to start lap 20, or is he coming into the final corner now? It looks like he might be coming into turn 14 and 15 to start the final lap. Yeah, so it's one more time around the track surface for SJD as he crosses the line, but it's going to be Nicky looking at the rear end of the fellow Force India in front, hoping that he makes one more mistake, and that's all Nicky needs. But yeah, it's going to be a nervy finish for the pole sitter, who's going to be looking at maintaining his 2nd position.
It could come down to penalties as well. I'm sure they've both got penalties, but I'm not sure who's got the most. So let's just imagine it is down for track position, and Speed Queen holding off the advances of Renner. He is really going for it as we're in the last lap now. He knows it's all or nothing.
Absolutely.
Consolidate his position, or is he going to go for money in the bank and take 5th place and take the extra point which comes with it? It's going to be a fascinating final lap of Mercedes versus the Renault power, as the Force Indians look a lot closer. Nicky in this stage of the track certainly looks a lot quicker than Joe. It's just a case of if that 1 second window comes down as they approach the second part of the circuit, we might just run out of laps for Nikki, which would be unfortunate because we like to see a good battle in the no assist championship.
Yes, Nikki goes within 1 second of Joel, so Nikki is all in when it comes to this finish. He's going to make sure that he's throwing it as deep into the corners as possible.
7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. All very, very close to each other. Malcolm, unfortunately, it might be a lap down as well, but you've got a good battle between the two McLarens and Delange in the Haas. And if you want to call the leaders across the line, Gareth, by all means, talk over me. As Delange coming into the final few corners now of the... He's coming to the final lap, I do apologise. 1 minute 46 ahead of behind the leaders, and Jill Nealand is looking left, he's looking right, he's looking everywhere, which way forward to get through. Is he going to be forced around the outside? Yes, he is, but he decides to stick in behind Delange. He's also got Humberstone, and Humberstone loses his wing. The two McLarens come together. They both run off. Oh no, unfortunate. Zach Brown will be pulling whatever hair he's got left out of his head. And the two McLarens have come back together. Are they close enough? No, they're not. Jill Nealand is going to be a second behind Delange. Might be enough for Delange, obviously, with DRS disabled at the moment. Yeah, could it? It's getting closer. Jill Nealand's getting a lot closer. Gareth, by all means.
So congratulations to SJD 1988, who picks up his first win of the No Assist Championship of Invictus RacingLeague.com in partnership with RacingLineMP.com. But we're heading into the final lap with Jill Nealand still looking at the back. Delange has gone wide going into turns 8 and 9, and Jill goes up the inside, and Renner picks up a 5-second stop go for an unserved stop go penalty. But Jill moves up into 7th place. Delange will be absolutely kicking himself. He did so well throughout the entire race to keep Chill behind, but in the final corners of the final lap, Chill looks to have got the move done, even though he got that love tap from his teammate in the McLaren behind Humberstone. Going into turn 1, Chill gets the move done on Delange, who's now going to start falling into the clutches of the second McLaren behind as they go into the final corner. So it's, congratulations to SJD, Joel and Nikki. Pick up 2nd and 3rd for the Force India team, so the Force Indias will be glad to take home a whole bundle of points later. Scopefielder takes up another good 4th position, as you see the McLaren there of Humberstone diving down, trying to get a late lunge down the into the final corner, and they cross the line. And these three with a final lap, absolute cracking battle between the three of them, and it's going to be a really unfortunate finish for Humberstone, who picks up 9th position, which is not going to help him at all when it comes to his fight for the championship. And yeah, guys, send in your congratulations to SJD, and he really does deserve it for an absolutely superb race in really tricky conditions, and he's flanked on either side by the Pink Panthers themselves, and you see SJD there taking the applause at the top step of the rostrum, and he should be really proud of his achievements there. And Joel will be disappointed after losing out. Possibly staying that lap extra in on the circuit on the intermediates meant that SJD gave himself the best opportunity on that undercut on the extreme wets, but he just had the pace in the wet session. He just managed to just pull ahead, and really the Force Indians had nothing to do to come back at him.
Well, the Force Indians have actually delighted to take a double podium. I heard that in the post-race takedown of the garage, they like to listen to Lionel Richie, but I'll tell you something, they'll be dancing on the ceiling tonight with a double podium finish. A fantastic race from SJD to come up from 3rd on the grid to take the race win. The only one blemish being the 3-second penalty. Fantastic performance from Scottfielder, finishing 4th after coming from 8th. Another consistent performance from himself, as well as Speed Queen, who takes another top 5 finish.
Absolutely. Speed Queen slowly getting there with consistency, possibly getting back into that rhythm that we were talking about earlier. Just hasn't quite got there when it comes to picking up any podiums or race victories, and we're definitely looking at getting Sergeant 009 back in the lobby soon, and possibly will give Speed Queen the adversary that she's been desperately looking for, to kind of bring her back up into contention with the guys up towards the top end of the grid. But yeah, as the guys say, as Boogster says, congrats SJD. That's how you do it. Yeah, and Sab says it's unlucky for Delange there after going deep into turn 8 and 9, costing him that position up against Chiln Island. But yeah, congratulations to the top 3. Well deserved. Very, very tricky race for every single one of them out there. And of course, unfortunate for the guys that didn't finish the race, such as Mike Yoss and Tony Y. So on recap, and how did you find the race, Tom? Have you got any particular thoughts about what you think? Have you got any anything that you think you might need to consider when it comes to performance leagues tomorrow night?
The what? Actually watching the race, it was a bit like Hungary last week, Gareth, where between us post race we decided to analyse it and we discussed what happened, what didn't happen. It didn't really come alive till the end, which is unfortunate. You had a few cars battling for second, third place, fourth place, fifth place, and you had the McLarens and the Hasses at the back, and obviously the wet might have hindered that somewhat, especially from an entertainment perspective. But for the first 10-12 laps, it was a fascinating battle at the front between the Red Bulls, the Force Indias, and Chiln Island, while the McLaren was working well in the dry to moderately moist conditions. So yeah, on the whole, it was a good race to watch, and plenty of food for thought going into our races on Tuesday and Wednesday respectively. But we'll be back next week at Monza. For the Italian Grand Prix, and then is it the break after that, Gareth, or is it one more week? Not Silverstone after that.
Silverstone after that, when then we take our 1 week break, and then it will be, I believe, Germany in round 7 after that. So definitely some interesting races coming up, some fan favourite circuits. Of course, guys, like Tom said, it's not our only race this week. We have got the 2 performance leagues tomorrow night, 1 and 2, which you can find the streams on our socials at Invictus RL on Twitter. You'll find all of your commentators' details and the stream links there, and equally F1, F2 and F3 on Wednesday night, which you will find streamed live on Twitch at 8 PM UK time. But feel free to join us for all the streams. If you'd like to find out more about Invictus Racing League, go to our website at invictusracingleagues.com, where you've got a sign-up page, where you've got the forum page, or if you want to see how the leagues are going on, the league tables are there. Equally, there are weekly roundup recap posts on the main page for everything that's going on in the leagues. And if you'd like to find out more, speak to one of our admins and they will be more than happy to get you involved in the league. And of course, congratulations to the top 3. Thank you for joining us for the French Grand Prix with Invictus Racing League in partnership with RacingLineMP.com. And thank you very much, Tom, for joining me once again. It was a great pleasure having you in the box.
As always, Gareth.
And for everyone else, thank you for joining us. It was great to have you all talking and chatting in the groups. Good to see you once again, and hopefully we will see you next week.